All right. We are on, and hopefully our view is better. But once again, sorry if it's not.
Yep. So I have this book recommendation for everyone, The Mismeasure of Man. Have you heard of this one, Robin?
I haven't.
Oh
I
man,
have
this one's so
not.
good. So
I'm
it
noting it.
basically talks about the history of IQ testing. And I
Oh,
don't know if you
cool.
know about it, but originally IQ testing was designed in France by a guy named Alfred Binet. And he originally used it to be able to have, I'm going to just stop sharing because I'm just showing text. But he originally wanted to make it so that it can help identify students who needed extra help and
Hmm.
specialized help. And he said specifically, this is not a test to measure intelligence. This is not a test to sort children. It's just
Interesting.
a test to be able to identify children who might need extra support. Right. And he was very, very vocal about that. Then it came to America, and we had the
Yeah.
Stanford Binet test, and they used it
I was gonna say
to
that.
sort by race, intelligence by
Of
race,
course, of
and then they also
course.
used it at places like Ellis Island and such to detect whether or not immigrants were intelligent or up to the whoever was the white at the time's intelligence. And on this
Hmm.
intelligence test, they had things like they said, "What is this?" And it was a baseball. And it's like, well, if you come from a country with, they don't have TVs back then, with no baseball, and you're asking them, what is this? Especially in English, if they don't speak English.
Right.
So intelligence testing was always a system to rank, or at least when it came to America, to rank humans and sort them, um, and specifically by intelligence. So there's no
Mhm.
such thing as a number that you can aggregate that will tell someone's intelligence. This battery of tests really just measures those specific things in those specific settings, but doesn't account for any learning history, any environments, any communities or cultures or anything. So when somebody said, like Donald Trump says, they're low IQ, he's really grasping from from a pseudoscientific, really problematic, racist history of trying to use science to degrade humans and put white people at the top of an imaginary period of worthiness. So there's no such thing as IQ. This book does an incredible job of really explaining how it was this hereditarian theory of IQ when the Americans got it and what they did with it. And I just always recommend the Mismeasure of Man as a psychology undergrad. We had to read it, and I really wasn't in a space to really understand all of the principles and concepts. And really, when you get into it, if you think about the fact that someone might say, okay, IQ is fixed, and you have this IQ at birth, it's like, okay, well, then education doesn't matter then. There
Right.
should be no point of education because if
It's
you
a
have a
mute point.
fixed level of intelligence, there would be no point in education to improve your understanding, your adaptability, your ability to do anything because you only have a fixed level of intelligence. So if you think about it for more than half a second, then it really just falls apart at the seams. So if anybody calls anybody low IQ, high IQ, my IQ is this number, all of that is BS, pseudoscience, not real stuff. And I really want to just make people understand that that is completely delegitimized, and people that actually do science aren't talking about IQ. They aren't concerned with IQ. They are definitely aware that that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. I can't remember the last time I've heard somebody reference IQ testing except for like leadership in our country,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
telling to me because I
Yeah.
know, where everything else is sitting. So, yeah, please add that to the list. I want to read that because I saw one of your most recent social media posts and I was like, you must be reading about IQ testing. I want to get in on that. So,
Yeah. It has a few other things. It has two other things. It talks about where the term Caucasian comes from.
Ooh,
Um,
yeah.
and if you want me, I can just read it real quick. I wrote a
Mhm.
script. The term Caucasian comes from a pseudoscientific obsession with ranking races, not biology. In The Mismeasure of Man, Stephen Jay Gould explains that 18th and 19th century scientists believed that Caucasus Mountains were the birthplace of the most beautiful humans, and therefore used that region to name white Europeans, placing them at the top of a hierarchy with Africans and Asians ranked below. That's it. That's the evidence. In
Wow.
1795, German autonomist John Frederick, I can't read it, Blumenbach, decided that a skull from the Caucasus region looked ideal to him, declared it the original and superior human form, and then labeled white Europeans Caucasian to place them at the top of a racial hierarchy. No genetics, no evolutionary basis, just a skull that he thought was pretty and a theory that white Europeans descended from it. The method was circular. Decide what superior looked like, and we'll decide what superiority look like. Find a skull that matches your prejudice, then claim that you've discovered proof. What makes this especially absurd is that people labeled Caucasian today often have no connection to the Caucasus at all. Meanwhile, many people from the actual Caucasus region are not considered white in modern racial categories. The label never made sense, and it never was meant to. And Gould's point is simple but devastating. Racial categories like Caucasian were invented to rank people, not describe reality. They reflect social power, not biology. So when you fill out a form and it asks you to check Caucasian, you're using a category invented by one guy who liked how a skull looked, that came from the skull measuring, race ranking era of craniometry, where one scientist's aesthetic preference became established fact. And people still defend that foundation to this day.
Like all I
So
can do
this
is
book
long
is super
sigh.
dope. You got to read this book.
Oh, I that like sold. I just need to like um add it to my thing. So like quick plug for public libraries
Hmm.
because like I do a lot of my book finding now with the public library. I'm in Kansas City and they have an amazing public library system. And a lot of texts are available through ebooks. So like I literally
Hmm.
just like have a tablet and
Hmm.
occasionally I will probably have to go in and get like a hard text version, but like if you're thinking, well, I don't want to buy the book, you don't have to buy the book. You can just go to your
Nope.
public library, get a library card, and please support the libraries because socialism is good and libraries are part of
Exactly.
socialism.
Libraries wouldn't be able to be made today if someone had the ideas. Same with like firefighters. But
Right.
to be honest, yes, go get your library card. But also, this book, The Mismeasure of Man, is so lauded that if you just Google The Mismeasure of Man PDF, um, you'll readily find a copy of the PDF in full. Um, and it's a great, and then it like does a definitive refutation to the argument that of the book of the bell curve, which is a
Mhm.
bunch of pseudoscience nonsense as well that attempts to reify and bring back the ranking races days of yore by intellectualizing it in a way that hides behind numbers where people like they make it so that oh yeah people are not going to really crunch the math, and then the dude that did the mismeasure of man in one of his second or third publications was like I'm going to just put this little refutation like in here to just rebut that and completely debunk it because that book the bell curve became popularized, and some of that pop psychology or pop science stuff is just complete nonsense, garbage, BS.
You might have mentioned it too already, so sorry if I missed that because I was like, verbal processing. Around what time was that term Caucasian developed?
Um,
And like it's totally cool
so
if you don't have it right now, but
so in 1795, German autonomist John
1795.
Frederick Blumenbach decided that a skull from the Caucasus region looked ideal to him. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so
this
Gould explains that
was
the 18th and
yeah.
19th centuries.
So yeah, some of the books that I've been kind of looking at about systemic oppression and whatnot have those concepts being taught and no scientific foundation for it, but saying like the white blood is superior, the white person is
Hmm.
more intellectual. It's like, well, maybe it's opportunity based, or maybe it's
Yeah.
because, I don't know, you brought black people over on boats to serve you. And so like what somebody knows is subjective. And but then like it was perpetuated. It continued to happen. So
Hmm.
like this should probably be common sense and this should probably be aware for everybody. But like kids weren't allowed to go to school together if they had different color skin. And so you had specific
Exactly.
schools for Black people that were not given the best quality educational tools. And
He
like, and
mentions
it
that in the
happened with,
mismeasure of man.
right. And it like, it
Yeah.
goes that way for Indigenous folks as well. Like, we had,
Hmm.
schools set up specific to like whiten, um,
Hmm.
indigenous folk. And in the
Exactly.
meanwhile, we're also stripping them of their land and their resources. And it's like, God, it just makes you really
And
seethe
then
with anger.
what do you value when it comes to knowledge also matters. You know what I mean?
It
Do
does.
you value like being able to do math really quickly? Do you value being able to plant and grow crops? You know what I mean? Those are two different
Hmm.
things to know, and they both have value, but whatever one you place above the other is what you're going to determine is smart and the other is not. So
Right.
those also go together. I mean, I feel like our one of the things I learned about during my PhD program is how to really investigate, how to ask questions, how
Hmm.
to look into things more deeply, because it is that deep. People that say it isn't that deep really don't think that hard. And they if they spend their whole life in the shallow end, nothing ever looks that deep. But when they dig below the surface and read a book, then they're like, oh man, maybe it was that deep. My bad.
Right. I've always been the person to ask too many questions. And that always got me labeled in the wrong areas, like religious spaces. If I'm asking too many questions, oh, she's asking too many questions. She's one of the
Hmm.
bad ones.
Hmm.
School, challenging my teachers and like, but why do we study this? Why is this important? Why am I
Hmm.
going to need this? And like, no answers are ever given. But now it's seen as a good thing because of my privilege and because of my
Hmm.
credentials. And it's interesting to me how few people do challenge those things. Like that's why our Niraba group does the things we do because it's like, they announce a speaker for a certain conference and people are like, "Oh, yay, so and so is going to be there." It's like, "But do you know what so and so has done? Do you
Hmm.
know why it's important that you don't platform that person?
Yeah.
Have you thought to just Google that person's name? Because if you do, you will find that information, but then you continue to give money to the cause and you continue
Yeah.
like, so just even asking simple questions about where does this come from? Who is this person? Like, what? It's not hard. We have Google. Is it a learned helplessness thing? Like, I don't even know.
Well, I think that it's also from a young age, as you said, your behavior, your verbal behavior of questioning certain things was punished.
Yeah,
So
I just
that's
didn't
how
care.
those, yeah, you just didn't care, but like that's how a lot of systems in the past have perpetuated problematic or even anti-scientific or nonsense. In the like, so like in the past, you probably would have been, beat out of
Oh, I would have
asking
been labeled as a
questions.
witch and burned at the stake. I
Oh,
100%
exactly.
own that. I
Exactly.
own
So, I
it.
mean, when it comes to like when you really think about what were witches, maybe they were practicing witchcraft. Maybe they were also asking questions from dubious men. Let's just be, straight
Did
up. You
those
know what I mean? It's like
exist? Come on. There's no
dubious
way.
men. I mean, today there couldn't be any dubious men probably sitting at what is it, 1600 Pennsylvania Ave?
I trust all men. I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
All
I feel safe
men.
with all men.
And that's I was talking with my girlfriend about so in my area, Waymos have been Waymo. There are a whole lot of Waymos going through now, and we're both kind of like, oh, I would never do a Waymo. But at the same time, I think about if I was a woman who was, you know, just feared for her safety in a Uber or a Lyft, I would be like, maybe Waymo is a better option because there's no probability of creepy man.
Really, I didn't
So,
realize that. I'll
so
have to look
you
into
know, you're
that.
taking your risk with because the Waymo is like autonomous driving. You know what I mean? It's AI, whatever. But you have the opportunity to pay for a Waymo with no person involved, even like
Yeah,
if
that
you're
is
like,
appealing.
yeah, somebody with maybe autism might not want to have to interact with a person. You know what I mean?
No,
I always, I have not been diagnosed with autism, but I always go to the self checkout line. And
same.
when the person doing the
No
self
small
checkout
talk.
area talks to me, I'm like, I came over here for none of this. I have my headphones in at
Right,
all
right.
times, so
Like
I'm just like,
signals.
ugh. Exactly, exactly. Which makes me do feel like maybe one day I should probably go get investigated or tested. But like at the same time, it's just like there are reasons that go beyond just capitalism that these
Oh
things
yeah.
might be beneficial to somebody. And it just goes back to your privilege of like for me I never think about being in trouble getting in a any type of car. I think about if it's a taxi, are they going to pick me up because I'm a tall black person? So I'm like,
Yeah.
hey babe, you're a smaller Filipino woman, so maybe
Yeah. I'm gonna
you try
put
to
you in the
hail the
front
cab.
here.
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
do the thing.
And then I'll come in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Rescue
when it comes
mission.
to like any area, I'm not scared because I'm like I don't think they're gonna try me. And when it comes to like traveling, people are like, oh yeah, watch out because they're pickpocketers. I'm like, yeah, they usually don't see me as the mark. they
That's funny.
but interesting enough, they do often realize or know that I'm American. So I gotta figure out how to address in a way that I can't.
Not present
Yeah,
as
exactly. I mean,
American.
maybe it's the Jordans or the Steph Curry jersey or whatever, but
Oh my gosh,
they're
yes.
they're able to identify that it's like, yeah, that's an American. Let me sell to him. But
That's
yeah,
so
no.
funny. That's a
I
really good point. I didn't think about the Waymo thing, because for many reasons I would prefer that. Being a
hmm
woman, like I have had to travel by myself a lot for work, and getting into any vehicle that is not familiar to me is scary. And like
hmm
one thing I do like about Lyft is you can ask for a woman or non-binary driver as a
hmm
preference. And so like it's always honored that. But
hmm
like I would also love to say I don't want a Tesla because I don't want
Yeah,
to support Elon Musk. And like, but I still have that apprehension because what if they are carrying a weapon? What if they don't have good intention? What if, and if my spouse is
exactly.
with me, I'm not worried because he is a
hmm
white man. And
hmm
like that awards privilege, and I know that. And
Yeah,
not even mentioning the autistic aspect because I do select, I prefer a quiet ride because if you
yeah,
ask me how's your day, now I'm like, well, now I gotta do mental labor. Like, screw
yeah,
this,
yeah,
um,
yeah. As I plan on being on
totally
my phone the
real.
whole time, but okay, here we are. And another one that's not as problematic, but it is still problematic, is sometimes like this, my girlfriend and I work from home. Sometimes we're working so much that we
Mhm.
can't go get our groceries, so we have the groceries
Right.
delivered. Yes,
Yep.
privilege,
I do
privilege, cool,
that.
cool, cool. If it's a man getting our groceries and we have to
Oh
get
my
like
God.
fruit or something,
Substitutions.
like every single time my
Oh, the
girlfriend looks
substitutions are
into it, please don't be a man, please don't be a man, please
I
don't be a man.
understand completely,
So
completely.
I'm on the train. It's like this shouldn't gender equality all day long,
I
but
know, but
men should
behavior
not be
history,
allowed. They
your
should not be
history.
allowed. Maybe if it's a gay man, maybe he's gonna
No,
be a little bit more
I will
attentive.
fight for gay men. Like, gay men are
But
okay.
if it's a straight man, because I know,
No.
especially I'm not all straight men, but I definitely know myself, and I just be like, this looks right. Like we asked for like pasteurized eggs,
Substitutes?
and
Yes.
and he's like, oh, there are no pasture. There's not what you want. It's like we know it's there. You just don't know what you're looking for.
Uh-huh.
Why did you get this job? Somebody fire him, but we're not gonna just
Who
give him
hired
like
you?
0 stars. I'm a millennial. It's 5 stars for the service.
Right, right.
Here's your tip.
People pleasing. Yep.
And also like I know you're not getting paid anything and you rely on this to be able to eat.
Right.
So um yeah,
It's a real
so
struggle. And as someone who has like very specific dietary restrictions and needs,
hmm
and like I'm vegan, but I'm also like on a medical diet. But so that
hmm
kind of that intersection makes it really challenging.
yeah,
And so like if it's like, hey, they don't have the Impossible Burger that you have requested substitution, and then it's just like ground chuck, and it's like no, no, and
it's no.
it's always a man. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Yeah,
There's a
I'm a
guy on
veg.
TikTok that I
Hmm.
follow, and he makes fun of like the straight man replacement thing all the time. You
Hmm.
should, if you haven't seen him, you need to find him.
I need him to be on my FYP. Let me just speak into my phone.
Let me
Yeah.
tell the technology, put me on this algorithm. Thank you.
Yep.
If I run
CIA
across him,
guy.
I'll if I run across him, I will message
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
his videos to
Send me
you.
that. Send
But
me
he's
that.
amazing.
Because no, I go through the same thing. I'm vegetarian, and one of the interesting things is like a lot of the times when I say that I'm vegetarian, even like especially just people that don't have cultures that have a lot of vegetarians, they're like, "Oh, but you still eat fish, right?" Or, "Oh, like do you
Right,
still eat like chicken?" Like, and they just don't know because they haven't been around it before.
right.
So those are things that I have to go through, but it's not that big of a deal usually. And even when I travel, like my girlfriend's worried because it's like, oh, are they gonna have fufu? Well, I'm like, well, do they have rice? Then I'll be
Yeah,
okay. Do they have
rice and
noodles?
beans,
Exactly.
100%.
And for me, I'm like one of the worst vegetarians because I'm like I like pizza and French fries. So
It
those
doesn't
are
equate to health. It just
yeah,
doesn't.
especially not the way I eat sometimes. But I'm trying to be better. But
Huh. It is what it
yeah.
is. And that's the thing about language. It's like, we have these biases. We have these like terms. Vegan is one of them. It's like, oh, you must be a
Hmm.
health nut. Like I ate like crap all last week because I was sick. I didn't like
Yeah.
self-prepare a lot of my meals and I ate frozen Impossible corn
Hmm.
dogs and like tater tots from Trader Joe's and
Yep.
all that sort of stuff. And speaking of small talk, Trader Joe's. Um, but yeah, I feel like yeah, all of it is so valid. And yeah, I don't even know how we got onto all of that, but we
It's
went
all
with
good.
it.
Tangents happen on podcasts. At least, I always say like there's got to be something in the podcast mics because some of the stuff I hear podcasters say is just ludicrous. But I mean, you don't have to have any
Mhm.
credentials to be a podcaster. I mean,
No.
so
Well,
mm,
and it's the same publishing a book. We've talked about that. Like you don't have to have any
yeah,
credentials. Doing like YouTube informational videos and like
yeah,
that's why conspiracy theories are a thing. That's why misinformation is such a prominent issue. And
yeah.
um, sometimes it's actually kind of challenging to filter students away from some of that. Like I can think of I might, we shared this article in the last time that we recorded, I think, or one of the previous times that
Hmm.
we recorded about students not critically analyzing, like, oh, there are actually no references here. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize, but it's in an academic journal. Like, why are we not
Hmm.
questioning things? Why are we not, I don't know. I
And
don't
that's a
know where I
skill
was
that
going with that.
no, 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 but that's a skill. I think the critical thinking is a skill that you can actually teach and is important to
Yeah.
teach. And I've seen a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to like the Morningside model and all that stuff. There's a lot of ways to teach critical thinking, and even there's ways to teach creativity, which a lot of people don't
Hmm.
recognize because creativity is really just a bunch of contingencies that have come about based on the learner's learning history. Like the best way that I can come up with talking about teaching creativity is as growing up, I like to write poetry and raps, right? So I'd like to try to say that I taught myself, but really it was my verbal community. So I listened to a lot of rap, and then I watched my cousin, and my cousin was, doing it. And then also I was in school, so I was learning about poetry. So then you just rap, rhythm, and poetry. So you just connect the two. And then I was learning how to write bars. And for a long time, it was really hard for me to stay on beat because I was trying to read while I stayed on beat and all that stuff. But
Right.
then as you go and you pick up those building blocks to be the what is it called? You have the component and the composite skills to be able to build up. And I like to do the thing was like one time I want to do a study where I teach people how to freestyle rap because
That'd be
it's
great.
really because like
That's a
it's really just like
challenge.
it sounds like it, but it's really when we teach kids, we teach them like rhyming because it's really important for
Right.
phonological awareness. So bed, head, read, said, right?
Mhm.
And then you could say this bed, that read, then read, this said, right? So then you're just adding syllables in between, and then you just make a sentence when I go and I said when I went to my bed. It's really simple to kind of build those components up. So then all of a sudden you're adding rhythm to it and then you can teach somebody through like direct instruction and precision teaching how to freestyle rap. And I think that that would be an amazing study because it would also kind of go into that creativity of showing individuals how creativity can be taught and learned. And it is taught and learned from the environment. We're just not adequately identifying what the contingencies are.
I just thought of a really good possible episode for the podcast here. As a rapper myself, just kidding, I'm not. Um, it it could be a good pilot for you to try to teach me to freestyle rap as an autistic
Yeah,
person who needs a script.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there you
I'd be down
go.
if you're comfortable with it.
If you can teach me to freestyle rap, you can teach anybody to freestyle rap. I would be absolutely sold on that 100%. So, because as you're talking about like coming up with the rhymes and stuff like that, I'm just sitting here like anxiety, like I don't think I could possibly do it. The John Cena meme with the face getting smaller, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
literally
yeah.
what's happening
Or
on
like
my end.
Homer Simpson going into
Yeah,
the
retreating into the
bushes.
bush. Just
Yeah, no, but I mean,
100%.
like, there's a lot of ways that we can identify environmental variables that teach things like even when it comes to acting. I've seen research articles on acting and making sure that individuals know their lines, how to get
Yeah.
actors to know their cues and stuff like that. There's so much that's not just your typical I need to do DTT with this autistic individual. Like,
I love your, I always love your impression of like the ABA white man. Like
yeah, yeah.
that's what I'm gonna call it, but I don't know if that's what
Because
it
I mean
is.
we've grown through it, and I think that we need to grow past it. If
Hmm.
only the reinforcement is there, because a lot of the reinforcement is provided by the insurance companies through money, and that's how a lot of people get their money, and so they think that the only way to get money is to do that. Whereas I know, well, I don't know, but I know somebody who knows a BCBA that works with the football team, the San Diego Chargers.
Oh,
They were in
cool.
LA, but I think now they're in San Diego. I'm not. I don't think we should be playing football, so I'm not a big football fan. But but
Oh.
they're BCBA and they work on improving tackling, right? So
Hmm.
I think that that's
I
really
think I know who
important.
you're talking about.
Oh, okay, nice, nice. So
Probably.
yeah, and it's like such a small community, but it's like you can do this. This can be a
Yeah,
job for you, and not a lot of people know about that, and it saddens me because I feel like we would have so many more people in our field if they knew that there wasn't only one option to be able to go out there and work, which I
right.
love working with kids. That's why I started this. That's why I kept going, and that's why I went further.
Mhm.
And I think that there's other ways with which we can help them and adults and senior
Yeah,
citizens,
not just
but if
autistic
only
kids.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, that's my soapbox,
No.
and I'm getting off it.
But it's a great soapbox. So I concur with all of the above. And I had a thought. Why did it run away? Um, so yeah, like we definitely have other areas. I actually just connected with somebody who does criminal rehabilitation and reintegration.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, oh, finally, I know somebody in the criminology realm. And like that's something that I'm super interested in part because of the systems at play. I've actually been looking into if there are any books out there, and if anybody knows of any, I would love it. If you know of any, the bail system. And like, I want to know about
Mm.
the history of the bail system because I see it as a huge problem and all that. Anyway, but that goes
Have
into
you read the new
criminology.
Jim Crow?
Not yet. Not yet.
That,
So
that's that.
does
Put
it
that
go
on your
into it?
list.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. The new
perfect.
Jim
So
Crow.
it's been on my list. It's like, God, I have all these great books I want to read. Right now, I'm actually reading about Rosemary Kennedy,
Mm.
who was the silenced Kennedy family member as a disabled person.
I know
And
exactly who you're talking about.
yeah, and I'm only a few chapters in, but it's important for me as somebody who's disabled and an advocate to really dive into this. And
Yeah.
I think we talked about like the terms like black sheep, um, black magic, stuff like that being associated with bad. Well, the
Hmm.
same thing actually goes with like certain terms like moron and
Yeah.
idiot and stuff like
Imbecile.
that. And those were actually labels for different ages of individuals who had different needs and accessibility requirements. And that was not even 100 years ago
Yeah,
that we were classifying people by those labels. Well, now they become like, oh, you must be stupid because you do this and blah blah. But they're so
exactly.
embedded in our culture that trying to undo all of that and even serving as a model, it gets frustrating because everyone uses them. They're constantly. So yeah, I wanted to throw that in there too because I just remembered
No,
that point.
you're 100% correct. In the mismeasure of man, they talk about that as well,
Hmm.
about that classification of imbecile and all stuff, and like dumb, blind, deaf, and dumb. And then it even gets to stuff now where like I have a lot of frustrations with like some stuff where people say like, do you know the whole pause thing? It's
The
like
pause
where
thing.
someone says that something that could be interpreted as gay, you say, "Oh, pause." Like it's basically that's what she said, but gay. So if I said like, "Oh, I'm gonna take the whole thing," and someone's like, "Oh, pause," like, "Oh, that could be interpreted as saying something gay." It's really prominent in the Black community. Um,
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard of
yeah,
that one.
so it's like basically that's what she said, but gay, but it's really comes from a very homophobic place
Yeah.
because in the mind of the person who says pause, being gay is bad. So that's the
Hmm.
only way that that joke works, right?
Right.
And but like it can seem innocuous, it can seem funny, it can seem not harmful because they don't mean it like that. Um, but it's problematic because it gives power to the ideology that being gay is bad.
Right.
And you know, people go, oh, it's not that deep, but it's like, but this is how
It
like
is.
beginner homophobia occurs. You know what I mean? And it
Mhm.
goes into toxic masculinity and all that stuff. And it's just like I've learned that in a lot of spaces, especially with people who aren't as woke as me, a lot of these things, like I can't consume media the same way. Like I was at a family event and then R. Kelly came on,
Oh
Step in the Name
God.
of Love.
Oh
And
God.
I, of
Not
course,
that.
was like, I'm not gonna go dance. And then one of my friends was
Right.
like, I'm sorry. I love R. Kelly. And they went to go dance, and a whole bunch of people were dancing. And then P. Diddy
And
comes
Chris
on,
Brown. And Chris
and
Brown
Chris
too. Like, why
Brown.
have we not
Yes.
canceled Chris Brown? What is going on?
I saw this TikTok and it was like, I'm taking all of your bad energy, bad vibes, bad things that are going to happen in 2026 and giving them to
Right.
Chris Brown. Give them to Chris Brown. Give them to Chris Brown.
Oh my
And it's
God,
like,
yes.
but so like I think that this is something that I really want to make a video about, but I don't know how the language yet. There are
Hmm.
people that I have criticisms for versus people I have smoke for. I have smoke
Right.
for the R. Kellys, the P. Diddy's, the
Yeah.
Chris Browns, and then there are
The known
criticisms.
abusers.
Exactly, exactly. I have criticisms for Snoop Dogg. I have
Hmm.
criticism
Same.
for for
Hamilton.
Killer Mike for Hamilton. Like there's like, but so it's difficult for me to engage with them. And then like there are
Right.
people that are in between. Like definitely for Kanye West,
Oh my God.
technically he didn't do anything, but the language that he's been using and the things that he's been doing is so harmful and
Yeah.
normalizing harmful stuff. Now I gotta have smoke for him.
But it's
Versus
also mental health related too, which puts in a
exactly.
whole other layer of, well, it's not excusing your behavior, but it is providing an explanation and you need help.
Exactly. And then there's
Oh,
Drake
but
who like I can't listen to him anymore.
I
Like
love Kendrick for calling him
I love
out.
Kendrick, of course.
Love it.
Um which Kendrick also has some problematic stuff. I will say even being a
Yeah.
West Coast guy, but like Drake, I have criticisms that kind of turn into smoke because I was a big fan of him when I was like 16, 17.
Yeah. A lot of us
And
were. He
I
was on
grew up
Degrassi.
exactly. And I grew up. I'm now 33 and he's making the same music for 16, 17 year olds and he hasn't grown up. So he hasn't so I can't grow with his music. And
Mhm.
I have smoke for him in the sense that you're still making music for teenagers, which may be more profitable, but at the
Grooming
same
them.
time, Exactly. You're grooming them and you're, texting Millie Bobby
I
Brown
know,
and
like
stuff like
what?
that.
It's the most random
So
shit, right?
this
Ugh.
line between having criticism and having smoke for somebody, especially when it comes to music and consumption, is really difficult, especially if we take a historical approach, because you could be like, oh, Pablo Picasso did these amazing works. And it's like, do you know why he cut his ear?
Right.
He was the one that cut his ear off, right?
No, that was Van Gogh.
Van
Picasso had
Gogh.
his
So
own stuff
he's
though, so
Picasso had his own. Van Gogh, do you know why he cut his ear off? I mean, so like if we take a historical approach, we should be able to apply that same criticism and smoke to these artists who sometimes we don't have as much information about. I read
right.
some stuff about Leonardo, not DiCaprio, but
DiCaprio.
Da Vinci,
Oh,
that talked about how he was a charlatan. He just copied other people's work and he didn't invent
hmm.
anything of use. And I
Yeah.
was like,
Sounds like
whoa.
a white guy for sure.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
let me
And
just
then, but
take
he's
over
so
this.
lauded now, right? But all he did was plagiarize and invent BS. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
When we talk about Descartes, you know, how to go ergo sum. I think therefore I am. I loved that when I was a kid.
Mm.
But I had a professor who was I love this professor. She was actually on my dissertation committee. She's Afro Latina, and she really criticized I think therefore I am, and really broke it down to how problematic it was. And the dude, all he did was lay in bed and meditate, and then he created one thing. I guess he came up with those Cartesian coordinates. I don't know if you know what those are, but they're like
No.
you have an X and Y axis.
Hmm.
Well, he was able to see Z, which is like three-dimensional spaces, because he saw a fly going around in the corner of the room, and he was like, "Oh, X, Y, Z, so we can have Cartesian coordinates." So I mean, all these people that we have in the past that we don't have smoke for, or
Right.
criticisms of as much, because we don't know their personal lives as well, compared to these individuals now, who Quentin Tarantino, you know what I mean? Just a
Oh yeah.
whole long list of individuals who you know too much about. And it's difficult for me to consume their artwork. Like, I am not gonna watch the anything from Dave Chappelle. One of my best friend's dad, he was like, "Oh,
Which
did
is
you see that new
sad. I
Dave
used to
Chappelle's?"
really like Dave Chappelle.
Same. And
I
he was
know.
like, "Did you see that new Dave Chappelle special? It was really good." I'm like, I'm just too woke for him.
Yeah.
If you're spitting turf transphobia type BS, then
Right.
I'm clicking out. It's not funny to me. I can't listen
Yeah.
to rappers that use the F slur or use the R slur,
Right. Right.
and it's really it's like it permeates the culture so much, because a lot of times, especially with the R slur, in the Bay Area, we have this thing called Get Stupid and Go Dumb, which is like part of a movement of dancing and understanding that
Oh, okay.
a lot of Black individuals were put on the short bus, and then we're kind of trying to reclaim it. But then when you go
Hmm.
into the R slur, I just can't get with you. But when it comes to getting
Right.
stupid and go dumb, I totally understand that. And it's a really
Hmm.
reclamation of the, like, being called stupid and being called dumb. And I get that, you know what I mean? But there's
Yeah.
just so much. So that I have smoke for, have criticisms of, is a really thing that I'm struggling with right now.
That's so interesting. And I love that framework because I struggle with that as well within ABA. And it's like there are people that I will not consume their articles. I will not go and support them at state conferences or national conferences or whatever. But then there is definite criticism for all sorts of, especially like organizations. So the
Hmm.
organizational thing for me is more of criticism. Like, if you fix this, maybe I will consume your product again. But I'm definitely more about smoke for individuals within the field, especially platformed people. And
Yeah,
that is a big thing. Like, I even tell students, I will not put my name on your dissertation if you cite this person because of the
yeah,
problems. And I'm not going to give them a platform unless you're criticizing what they have
yeah,
to say and doing it in a really good way. But most students are using these articles and these authors, and I think back when I was in grad school, I didn't know a lot of this either, but no one told me. I had to find it
exactly.
myself. And so, like, when I communicate to students and I'm like, okay, well, what about this article did you like? Well, guess what? You can find one by this person that says the same thing, but it didn't come
Exactly.
up first in the Google search because it's not the
Big name.
the white guy who's published 50 times versus this non-binary person who's only published once.
Exactly.
It's an algorithm thing. And so like
Yeah.
they appreciate that, but having those discussions peer to peer is where I generally see a lot of resistance. And I'm kind of struggling with some of that now, right? With an individual in
Hmm.
the field. And it's like, if you can't handle me calling these things out, you shouldn't be platforming anything, period.
Yeah.
Because you can't
Yeah.
have difficult conversations. Not that I'm great at it, but like I'm at least willing to have them.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people think that you shouldn't have them, that you need to avoid them, that it's not
Yeah,
okay to have them.
it'll
And then
go
that
away if we
usually
ignore it.
shows their privilege, you
Hmm.
know, because they haven't had to have the conversation because it hasn't affected them. It's like that whole I don't do politics. Well, politics don't do you. And if you have the privilege to not have your identity politicized, then that tells a lot, you know? So
Must be nice,
ugh,
like to not
that
have to
must
worry
be
about your
nice.
body being governed like by
Exactly.
politics. Cool. Love that for
Exactly.
you.
Hmm. Wish it was the same for everybody, you know.
No kidding.
'Cause I heard someone was like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Maybe the states should choose base, right? Oh, then maybe instead of the states, just maybe the locales, the cities.
Ew,
And then instead of the
gross.
cities, maybe the doctors. Instead of maybe just the doctors,
We're
maybe we
getting
should make it even
closer.
smaller government
We're
to the person.
close. We're so damn
Maybe the
close.
person
Like
should decide. Like so,
little,
so no,
little
they were
further.
like making fun of like the whole states' rights. Instead of it being a state right, maybe it should just be the city, and then maybe instead of the city, maybe it's just the doctor. Maybe not the doctor. Maybe it's just the person. And it's
Right.
like, yeah, if you follow the ideology to its logical conclusion, you'll get back to where it should be.
Mhm.
But of course, that's not what they want. They're not going to
God,
say what they really want because,
that's
and
so
some of them
frustrating.
will, some of them are really that terrible. And I don't
Mhm.
think that they should be breathing our air, frankly. If you want that kind of stuff, then I think you should go to a different planet. Let's put you on the first trip to Mars, and y'all can go over there and do all that. And then we'll be here and we will send you no resources.
What actually happened with that, by the way? I know that this is completely somewhat not related, but like, were we were going to ship a bunch of billionaires, right? Like, have we not done that still, or are we still planning on it? Or I don't know. I'm ready to get
Good
rid of them.
question.
So,
Hey, eat the rich, let them go.
yes, that's why.
We'll,
Remember that submarine
yeah.
too that like exploded with like the really rich people in it and like no one cared and
The
like
only sad part was the kid because
the
this
kid,
rich
yeah, I
kid, yeah. I
going
mean,
with his
other than
dad,
that, you know what I mean. I was following
right?
that. There's these news guys that I like to watch. Internet Today on YouTube. They do a great job of like being so like there's you could tell the news and then there's like your side, your bias. You're always gonna have a
Hmm.
bias. There's no such thing as an
Yeah,
unbiased presenter. But I like their bias because they lean really, really far left, like myself. And it's two white guys and two
that's good.
straight white males who are really on the right side of everything. I think that the only criticism that they have that goes farther than mine is their criticism of AI, and they really, really hate
Mm,
all AI, almost all AI, call it slop and stuff. Because I mean, we talked about that there's good AI and there's
right,
bad
right.
AI. I think that there's a conversation about that, but I think that since they're in the journalism field, what they often probably see is all the bad AI, all the
Yeah.
examples. Like, because a lot of times when you read the news, it's like what bleeds leads, and
Hmm.
that's what gets talked about. So
That's so
yeah,
interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely along the eat the rich. I want to be clear though, like anybody who's not in a position with like billions of dollars and doesn't give back to people and, like feed the country, um, I like you. I want you to have rights. But
yeah,
anybody who, like, there's no reason for you to have that much money ever.
yeah. I
Like,
mean,
you can't
it's
possibly,
unethical.
well, yeah, and you can't possibly buy things to sustain needing that much money. Like, you're gonna run out of stuff. Like, why would you not? That's another thing. I pay attention
Exactly.
to who donates and who
Hmm.
doesn't donate to causes. And, like, yeah,
And
that's
there's a
a,
difference between like mutual aid and charity, where charity is often related to tax breaks and stuff like that. Like,
hmm.
I forget who. Jeff Bezos was married to, but
Yeah.
he divorced her and she's just always giving money away. She gave money away
Hmm.
to a lot of historically black universities and colleges. She just always, you hear about her giving money away because she knows what type of timing she should be on. Um,
Yeah.
and when it comes to, it's like that Wesley Snipes meme where he's holding the gun and he's got to shoot, but he's crying. It's like
Yeah.
she's the
Yeah.
last one.
Oh
That's me.
man. Oh, that's
Um,
so appropriate.
yeah. So
Gosh.
and I think that I don't know if we talked about this. I feel like we talked about this, where once you get to a certain level of money, I feel like it's becomes almost a mental disability or mental disorder where you're so disconnected
Oh
with
yeah.
the common human and you're like just when you're still like I gotta
Yeah,
accumulate
you
this
can't
much, it's like
relate.
hoarding. When we call hoarders people who have mental problems. Well,
Hmm.
why can't we call people that are money hoarders the same thing?
The
Oh, well,
same
because
thing,
money is
exactly.
money. And it's really the same. It's really worse, to be honest.
Mhm.
A whole lot worse. So, yeah, eat
We
the
have
rich.
talked about it loosely, but we've talked about it in the context of like us as instructors not wanting to lose sight of what it's like to be a
Oh yeah,
student. It's the same
yeah,
parallel though.
yeah.
And it's the same parallel if you're in like middle or upper management in clinics or whatever organization that you're working at and you're supporting RBTs or
Hmm.
direct implementers. It's the same thing. But the further that discrepancy goes and that gap widens, the less attached you become to all those individuals. So yeah,
Exactly.
that's I think the context we've discussed that in, which is important to always kind of keep in mind.
Hmm.
Not that we are comparable to billionaires in any way, shape, or form because we chose to go into teaching.
No,
I don't know.
exactly.
I think some people sometimes think, oh, well, you're like a professor now. You must be rolling in dough. No, like it's not like I can eat, you know,
Yeah.
I can
A
afford to
simple
live,
Google search will
but
have you
a
know the
simple Google
difference.
search.
And then it'll tell that range. It's like look at the bottom of that range. That's where we're sitting.
Well, it's funny because I came from a smaller program before, and so I was sitting way at the I don't even know that I'm in the range for the previous job, which they were wonderful. I honestly, it was kind of hard for me to leave that job, but I
Hmm.
knew being an adjunct where I am now, full time, was so good. And I already knew people. I was like, this can't be bad. But now I'm kind of curious. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna look.
Yeah. No, I mean, unfortunately, some of the jobs that provide the most good for the most amount of people will not be having you paid well at all. Whereas playing a child sport professionally will get you paid buku lump sums of money.
Oh my God. The NFL business sickens me, by the way, since we're
Yeah,
talking about that.
same.
Um, and like that's the thing, like we are at a teaching institution, which is important to distinguish between because college sports are a big thing too.
Hmm.
And I know of people who teach for some of these like brick and mortar schools that do have sports, football in particular. And that's how they generate their revenue. That's how they get their, their bonuses and stuff like that. And it's kind of gross because it's like, but this is a college.
Yeah,
Like the whole definition of a college I thought was to be a um higher educational placement, but yet everything is riding on our football team because they're in like this division for, trying to win games and
two
but we don't
things
teach
that
for a school like that, luckily.
yeah, no, yeah, exactly. And two things. One, a lot of people refer to it as call as football programs with a classroom attached to it. That's what a lot of universities are.
That's yes, yes.
And then also too, that really goes back to Ronald Reagan and
Hmm.
the commodification of education, so that you have to pay to go, and it's supposed to be a moneymaker. The
Yeah,
purpose is education and building
should
knowledge
be.
and knowledge creation. That's what it should be and what it was originally. But then when it comes to capitalism, shout out to our favorite homie capitalism, he makes it so that it
Oh, it's a
has
he.
to turn a profit. It's definitely a he, yeah. It has to turn a profit. It has to, have, be all these things that it was never intentionally designed to be. So we get further away from what we need to be doing. So teachers and educators, there's the whole publish or die, where if you're going to an R1
Yeah,
Research One university, you have to publish
for free.
consistently, yeah, a-
For free.
and for free, or you're going to not be able to keep and sustain your job if you don't have tenure. So it's terrible, and
It's exploitive
uh,
too.
yeah, exactly. So I
Oh
made this
no.
analogy to one of my professors, and she was mortified and hated me. And I don't think she ever really saw me the same after this. She was explaining to us, lowly PhD students, about how publication works. And this is at Penn State, R1 University,
Oh
and
no.
how um how it was really important to publish and all the things that publishing gets you. And I was like, oh, okay. So basically it's like you're the prostitutes and the university is your pimp. And
Hmm.
she did not like that, and I think it's because she never thought about it like that, and it was true.
Hmm.
And
That's
they just
so
turning
true.
tricks or publications,
Yeah.
and she did not appreciate that analogy, but it's the truth.
Mhm.
You educational intellectual prostitutes out in these streets turning these tricks, which are publications, for your pimp, which is your institution, and then the institution owns the intellectual information.
Right. Oh my God,
So
it's so true.
welcome to academia.
We love it here. I mean, we do love it because we wouldn't be here otherwise because there's literally no other incentive to be here. And that's what
Nope.
I tell students. Like if you want to go into publishing, great. But like if you want to go into teaching, I'm gonna also be straight with you. Like it's not glamorous. It's not like there are a lot of drawbacks. And if you get mad about the systemic structures at play, this isn't for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, if it's going to affect you in a way that you can't perform, then,
Hmm.
maybe just dabble in it, maybe just do an adjunct. But if you're ready to fight it, if you're good with like being resilient with it, go for it. It's just you have to kind of understand you are a pawn. You are 100% a pawn. Do I feel that way currently at my job? Not really. But I
Hmm.
also know that I am a piece of that bigger puzzle of, productivity but that's like any job in the United States
Yeah.
because it's capitalism.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. And I think that it goes back to this one thing. So when I was first a PhD student and I was like TAing for my first class, I had a wonderful professor, white woman. I'm not going to say her name just because I feel like what I'm going to say next in this current administration might get her in trouble, but I think it was so
Yeah.
important. She would tell people this is a class for future special educators, right? Big class because it's one of the introduction to special education classes. And she said, if you're going to be in this field, and it may have been for it was split 400, so it may have been like a class that even general ed students had to take. She's like, if you're
Hmm.
going to be in this field and you don't think that every student can learn, or you don't think that all students deserve to be have attention and focus and help and the general concern we have for people who we care about, if you don't think that everybody can, then you don't need to be here. You need to get
Right.
out of here now. Like
I'll
she
enjoy.
like
Yeah.
straight up let them know, like, if you don't
Good.
think every student can learn and don't think that all students like have the capacity and the ability and should be accommodated and taken care of, then you need to leave now. This is not the profession for you.
Yeah.
And that was so instructive to me as someone who wanted to be a professor, because it showed that there are these ways that you need to communicate with students, upcoming future professors or teachers, that it's like, hey, if you don't feel this is the truth, or if you don't feel this way, then you shouldn't be here. And that was, something that I hadn't really heard explicitly explained, because that's the truth and that's what they need to hear. Because I'm sure we've both seen and heard of and know of teachers who are just like, oh, well, they have XYZ disabilities, so they can't, or
Hmm.
they won't be able to. So I'm not even going to try, or I'm going to
Right.
lower my expectations because I think that they're unable to do this. That's so messed up. And that's
Mhm.
doing an incredible disservice and it's disrespectful to the learner.
Yeah.
And we need to give the learner all the learning opportunities they can to be able for them to show us their potential because you don't get to choose somebody else's potential.
Right. I've definitely used similar phrasing with I taught practicum for years before I got into like actual content courses. And with my practicum students, you can get a little more in the weeds because you're
Hmm.
talking about real cases and clients and, problem solving with the students. And my big thing is if you're not willing to listen to your learner, then there's the door. Like, I don't want to see you here. And I don't want to be a peer of yours because you're going to perpetuate the harm and the abuse that has continued to happen and continues to happen. So yeah, I'm glad that that is something that is helpful because
Hmm.
people don't realize, I don't know if there's like a disattachment to the fact that you're working with human beings, but like I mean, human beings hear what you say about them. They know how you
Yeah,
perceive them. And it's like maybe they're not performing, quote unquote, to your standards because they hear the shitty things you say about them. And they're
exactly.
like, well, now I'm not going to do it because why do I need to impress this person? Like, I don't blame them.
Yeah, like talking about the person as if they're not in the room with you because you don't think that they can
Huge pet
understand you
peeve.
or you don't think that they're listening or whatever. That especially when it comes to children, because children are sometimes the most disrespected humans in the sense that they're not
Oh,
given
yeah,
the autonomy that any
no
other
voice.
adult, no voice, exactly. So like, and my thing is it's generalized into my dog a lot of times. And then if my girlfriend says, "Oh man, the belly is big." I'm like, don't fat shame Chewy.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
Your belly is
But like
beautiful.
exactly. But you really have to be concerned with how you speak. And even it shouldn't just be around that person. It should be
Mhm.
in general. You should
Yeah.
be able to speak. I mean, ideally, we would be able to speak with about everybody in the best ways. And of course, there needs to be some times where we need to critique or we need to provide feedback. But there's ways you can do it. And some people feel like, oh, I don't have to coddle to their feelings. So, well, how do you want to be perceived?
Yeah.
Are you going to be an a-hole all the time? And if you are, then no one's going to want to be around you. So you can be an alone a-hole,
Yeah.
because no one
We
wants
don't
to
need
be
you.
around that. Exactly.
There's a bigger system issue with this too, not only within ABA, but around ABA and education, because we still focus on the medical model of disability in particular, because a lot of our students that we get are working in autism clinics and working with
Hmm.
disabled learners and everything. And so, those frameworks are not always understood by instructors, and that's kind of frustrating for me because my emotional labor has to increase by a lot and it's already draining. Why are we still freaking talking about this? I know you understand
Hmm.
completely what I'm
Hmm.
trying to say here. It's like, oh my God, this again. Um, but what's so obnoxious is, I'll give that feedback to a student and be like, hey, instead of talking about deficits, let's talk about opportunities for growth, or let's talk about
Hmm.
strength building or skill building or whatever. Well, that's not what the VB map says. Well, that's not what the AFL says. I don't care. By my assessment because I don't
Yeah.
use that language. And
Hmm.
um, but regardless, just because one person said this, does that mean we don't evolve? Does that mean we don't change? Does that mean
Exactly.
we don't and like make a better standard? Like speak
Yeah.
out. Tell the people that are authoring these assessments that they're ableist. Like tell them.
And
I will tell them gladly. So yeah,
exactly.
it's important that we give that feedback, but unfortunately it's not consistent.
No, it's not. And I think that it's a common logical fallacy to appeal to authority. And I think that that's one of the things that might be happening. And it's
Yeah.
like, then it's like, well, can I use my authority? I got a PhD, so let's listen to the doctor, you know?
Mhm.
Um, One thing I want to talk about, uh, so not conspiracy, but controversial corner, controversy corner. This is a
Oh,
controversial
we'll
take.
see. We'll see about controversy. We'll see.
Okay, okay. So sometimes labels of disabilities or learning disorders are they're good in the sense that it can help clinicians and practitioners communicate
Right.
between each other about what's going on.
Hmm.
But sometimes
With a
I
caveat.
don't, yeah, sometimes I don't care about the label because it doesn't adequately describe what we're working with, what the
Right.
concern is, what the behavior is, and the frequency of the behavior. So if someone just says this learner is autistic or this person has
Hmm.
opposition defiant
That doesn't
disorder
tell you
or
everything.
whatever, that doesn't help me. So
Hmm.
sometimes people will see like, oh, you've worked with a lot of these people or people that we think are these people. Would you diagnose this
Yeah.
person with autism or this or that? And I say, one, I'm not licensed or whatever to diagnose. And two, I prefer not to have, like, I understand there's a community building aspect when it comes to diagnosing, and there can be
Hmm.
a lot of beneficial stuff for diagnosing. But for me personally, I'm not for it for other people. What I'm interested in is what are the behavior, what are the
Yeah.
frequency of the behavior, what are the behavior that we desire, and what are the socially significant behavior to the person, to their
Hmm.
community, to their caregivers or parents, teachers, whatever. What's the behavior like? Those are the things that I'm really focused on, as
Yeah.
opposed to what is the label or can you label this? And because the society has often gone so far towards labeling that it doesn't really adequately address the concern.
Yeah. Well,
Do
it's
you
a
understand what
slippery
I'm saying?
slope. Oh, absolutely. It's a slippery slope to
Yeah.
stereotyping as well. And then it becomes
Yes.
discriminatory. And so, like,
Exactly.
it becomes an issue. So, like, I am a I struggle to use the word proud because it depends on the day, but I'm
Mhm.
disabled. And so it's like I will use my identities as a descriptor sometimes, but there's also this understanding that all disability is dynamic. All
Mhm.
disability is varied. It depends on the day, it depends on the time, it depends on the context, the situation. We talk about setting events in ABA, we talk about reinforcement and punishment. All of that matters with disability, and we know that. Um, all that to basically say one term is not going to summarize an entire experience. And like, I feel that when we do talk about like disability in particular, and we say this is my identity as an autistic person, there's an asterisk beside it. Like it's a silent asterisk that in the footnote it says, which only is like part of my identity, but it does frame my experience.
Mhm.
Well, I am hypersensitive to certain stimuli, for instance, like sense of smell. I'm like a bloodhound. I can smell everything. I can take multiple smells and separate them out and say, oh, I smell this with a hint of this, which
Mhm.
people are like, what is wrong with you? But other people are hyposensitive to things that I might be hypersensitive to. And so, like, it doesn't summarize everyone's experience. It just says that, hey, you meet some criteria that
Mhm.
these old psychiatrists decided to say was important, and you meet this group. But does it tell me your need for accommodations and what those could look like? No. Does it tell me
Exactly.
how many skills that you've gained in the last year? No.
Mhm.
Does it tell me the best way that you learn with prompting, or do how autonomous are you? No. So it's just like with every other identity that you could say, religious, non-religious, black, not black, whatever the case may be. It's just a piece that can provide some context and some descriptor, but it might be the person's framework. I don't know if that's like a good way to describe it, but it doesn't
I think it's
account
pretty
for that
good.
variance.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why I feel very controversial about saying it, because when a lot of people don't have experience in it, it sounds like, oh, you don't care about diagnoses, so you don't care about disabled people, or you don't care about their
No,
being able
that's
to
not
get
true.
supports. It's like, no, that's not the case. My
Mm,
concern is that this diagnosis might give a blanket descriptor of what they can and cannot do, and that's not the case. That
Yeah.
doesn't them a disservice in the end of the day. And what
Mhm.
I'm trying to do is really understand holistically what's going on so that we can be able to address the situation accordingly. And to do so, I can't just get a word or a term to the person, because when you go back to that medical model, maybe that works. That sounds like that definitely works for physicians when
Yeah.
there is a medical concern. So that helps physicians when they see that on the sheet, that they can apply a
Right.
battery of tests and medications for that person, for that term or sickness or illness or what have you. But when it comes to learning disabilities, when it comes to other kinds of disabilities, it's different,
Mhm.
and we have to apply different doses, different dose intensity, different cumulative dose, different dose forms for the different ways that these disabilities might appear.
Right. I think it's also important to note here, because of that framework and conversation, that diagnosis is a privilege, and it's
Hmm.
one that not everybody who actually fit the criteria for receive. And so,
Hmm.
like, case in point, my assessment with a neuropsych for my ADHD, autism, and avoidant personality stuff was billed at like $1,200. That's a lot of freaking money. Now, granted, it's not the
Yeah.
cost of open publication, but
Hmm.
like it's still a pretty hefty amount of money. And I was initially billed that amount. Now, would it devastate me and put me on the streets? No. So I am in a position where I can pay that. But there are many people out there who identify with different disabilities who say, you know what, I really think I meet criteria. I would love to be evaluated so I could learn more about myself, but I know that I don't have insurance and it wouldn't be
Hmm.
covered and I can't afford it. I can't pay for that. But we in like the neurodiversity affirming realm generally see diagnosis as a gate to access. So
Hmm.
it grants us the opportunity to talk about accommodations. It grants us the opportunity
Exactly.
to, help ourselves, but we're not using that as a replacement for our behavior. It's not the excuse for our behavior. It's just the explanation as to what could help us or whatever. And so, it's a system play. And like when we have
Yeah.
to do functional assessments and we have to create behavior plans, I would argue that the main reason why diagnoses are in there is because otherwise we won't get paid. And that's a
Exactly.
product of the system, 100% in
Ex-
capitalism.
exactly. I know this kid who had um, uh, Down syndrome, and they just tacked on autism because they knew that
They would
doing
get
so would
services. Yep.
get services. So it's just like,
Which sometimes I
what
agree
is
with, and then
this?
sometimes I don't agree with. It's like
Exactly. So
time and
what
place.
is this? You know what I mean? Like, the point
Hmm.
is the kid needs supports.
Right.
I'm going to do whatever I can to be able to provide the supports.
Yes.
But then they're going to have this label that they may not identify with, which may be inappropriate for them. Maybe they're frustrated about it. And a lot of times, especially when my dad would say, because I was diagnosed with dyslexia at a young age, I don't think I have it. But I think it was really just I was taught reading poorly, and didn't have good phonological awareness, couldn't spell, and that could be easily remediated or whatever with proper skill building and fluency. But
Right.
he would say that, the disability was my biggest secret because I didn't want people to know, because I saw how people looked at people, especially like early 2000s. You have dyslexia? Oh,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. So, I had to like go to a resource room when students would go to a different class, you know?
I remember the
So,
resource room thing
yep,
happening, and everyone was just like,
yep,
ooh, like it was a
yeah.
big
So
deal.
exactly. So, I mean, a lot of times it could be kids' biggest secret, he would say, because just you don't want to seem different.
Right.
But I think one of the good things about Gen Z is I think that from what I've seen, a lot of them are very accepting, very open,
Yes,
very
same.
supportive of individuals with disabilities compared to how we had to grow up,
Yeah,
where it wasn't so much. And I can only imagine, I hope every generation gets better. And of
I
course,
hope.
there are outliers on each side of the aisle, but
For the most
it's
part,
just
though,
yeah, for the
I
most part,
agree.
what I've seen is really supportive, especially in the classroom. Like actually, some people can
Hmm.
say, "Oh, online," or from what I've heard, but it's like, no, we've been in the classroom. We've seen how these students are supportive and like, "Oh no, I'll work with them. I'll help them." You know what I mean? Whereas before, it's like, you
Yeah.
know, back when we were, growing up.
Well, yeah, and I think a big conversation to that too, and because it was separation and it wasn't
Hmm.
inclusion, and I think that that has made a huge difference in how everything is being perceived now by these generations because like you said, I had to go to the resource room. I can't tell you. Like I knew that we had students in our school who went to special education. But like I can't the only time I think that we actually had engaged with those peers was during the DARE program. You probably
Yeah,
didn't get the DARE program because you were probably like right after it failed. Um, but yeah, so I remember that and I was like, who is this guy? Like
hmm
where did he come from? He seems cool, but like who is
hmm
he? But there was no like let's talk about this, this person's going to join us. Why don't you tell us about yourself? Like none of that. And I see it very different now, and I'm very grateful for that because I wish we could have had the same thing.
I agree. And also, from what I've heard, there are still places in the United States where DARE is still happening.
I thought it was completely failed. Now I have to Google.
I
Oh
mean,
man.
it's failed, but I heard that there are like some places, especially like in the South, where they're like, "Oh yeah, bring that on over. We want the abstinence only. We want the dare."
Oh my God, they still have a website.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
so shocked right now.
well, people don't follow the data. I mean, look at
Oh,
who's our
right, right.
Secretary of Health or whatever.
Oh my
RF
God, don't
Kennedy. We
even.
got measles coming back. We got the
No,
Black
stop.
Plague.
Oh God.
Like,
Speaking of terms, Black Plague,
yeah, yeah,
let's
exactly.
let's talk about that
See,
one. Let's talk about
what
that
about the
one.
White Plague?
The White Plague. That's oh my gosh, it haunts me every day. Um, oh wow, okay. I'm gonna have to do some more digging and follow up next time on this because yeah,
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
is
I'm telling you, you should
I
check
had
out my
no
guys
clue.
at what is it called? Internet Today on YouTube.
Yeah, Internet
They
Today got
the
it.
only reason why I know is because they do this segment called Weekly Weird News, where they just go over the weirdest headlines and they'll talk about stuff. And that's how I learned that these like they're still there. Like they one of them actually has a shirt that's there, like, but he wears it ironically, just
Right, I
because
have one of those
he's
too,
yeah,
actually.
exactly.
But I thought it was
So
dead. Like
no,
people probably
no,
think I'm
no.
supporting it now, and it's just like, ooh, maybe I should burn that. I got it from Forever 21 like 5 years ago before they went bankrupt and belly up. But like,
Exactly.
oh my gosh, now
No.
do I have to burn my ironic dare shirt because it's actually not ironic, and this whole time I thought it was.
Well, maybe you can
Yikes.
vandalize the shirt or like,
Vandalize it.
maybe add some descriptors
Make
as
it
to RIP
clear.
Dare or something like that.
God, yeah, I guess I need to. It reminds me of speaking of like people we follow, and there's a lady who I follow who has a segment for white women, and it's like, am I MAGA presenting? And maybe I should ask her. Be like, hey, I have a Dare shirt I purchased ironically, but apparently it's still a thing. Does that make me MAGA presenting? But she has like a really humorous approach to things. But it's also serious because I'm like, I want to make sure that if you see me out in the general public, you're not like, ooh, I don't want to
Well,
approach her. So, not that I want
if
to
you
be
have a
approached,
nose
I want to be
ring, that
clear.
might help.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
anytime I watch her videos, I'm like, okay, check, check, check. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
good. I
Yeah.
appear like more of a Stevie Nicks type, so I think I'm good. Um, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that, is there anything else you want to cover? Because I feel that I need to get ready for a thing. Um,
No, I think that we're good for today, and then we'll come back and